Mesa Verde was largely deserted by around AD 1300 after a period that included drought and other migration pressures, while Cahokia's rise and decline have been linked by researchers to climate shifts, drought, flooding, and agricultural stress. Ancient skywatching was also real. Chaco Canyon is often discussed in relation to archaeoastronomy and cultural astronomy, the civilization that disappeared after the sky opened. The story begins with a city that should not have been empty. Its walls were still standing. Its storage rooms still held traces of grain. Its wells were not completely dry. Its homes were not burned. And its streets did not look like a battlefield. There were no clear signs of an invading army, no smashed gates, no piles of weapons, and no mass grave waiting under the dust. That is what made the place feel wrong. Because when a city dies, it usually leaves a reason behind. Fire leaves black walls. War leaves broken bones. Famine leaves empty food rooms. Migration leaves packed houses and missing tools. But this city looked as if life had been interrupted. Bowls were still on floors. Stone tools were still beside work areas. Clay lamps were still near doorways. Small personal objects were still inside homes, as if their owners expected to return. But nobody returned. For centuries, local stories gave the ruins a strange name. They called it the place where the sky opened. At first, archaeologists treated that name like a legend. That is normal. Old places collect stories the way abandoned houses collect dust. A strange ruin becomes a haunted city. A bright meteor becomes a god. A drought becomes a curse. A migration becomes a disappearance. But then researchers noticed something that made the legend harder to ignore. Every major doorway in the central district faced the same direction. Not toward the nearest river. Not toward the easiest road. Not toward the sunrise in a simple way. The doors, the ceremonial plaza, and the long stone path outside the city all pointed toward one narrow area of the night sky. That does not prove anything by itself. Ancient people watched the sky carefully. They used the sun, moon, stars, and seasons to farm, to build calendars, to hold ceremonies, and to give power to rulers and priests. But in this city, skywatching did not feel like one part of life. It felt like the entire city had been built for one appointment. And whatever that appointment was, it seems to have arrived. The first strange discovery was not found in a temple. It was found under the central plaza. A sealed chamber had been hidden below the stone floor, covered with dark clay and packed earth. Inside it were hundreds of broken tablets. Most were damaged by time. Some were almost unreadable, but several showed the same symbol again and again. A circle split open by a vertical line. Below the circle were rows of people with their arms lifted. Above the circle was something that did not look like the sun. It looked like a wound. It looked like a door. It looked like the sky had been cut open. That symbol appeared only in the city's final layers. Earlier artwork showed animals, stars, water signs, human figures, farming scenes, and normal religious patterns. Then, near the end, this new symbol appeared everywhere. It was carved on tablets. It was scratched near doorways. It was painted inside one underground room. It appeared on small black mirrors found on rooftops. And always, it was connected to people looking upward. The official explanation was careful. The city had probably suffered environmental stress. Maybe the rain became unreliable. Maybe crops failed over several seasons. Maybe leaders lost control. Maybe families slowly moved away. That kind of explanation makes sense, because many real ancient settlements declined through pressure that built slowly over time. A civilization does not need aliens to disappear. It only needs bad water, weak harvests, social conflict, and enough fear. But the problem was the timing. The final signs did not look slow. They looked sudden. In one house, researchers found food prepared but uneaten. In another, a child's sandals were near a sleeping mat. In a workshop, stone tools had been left in the middle of use. In a storage room, sealed jars were still placed in neat rows. These were not the remains of people calmly moving to a better valley. These were the remains of people who stopped what they were doing. Then there was the road. Outside the northern gate, a path of pale stones stretched into the desert. It was too narrow for trade carts. It did not connect to another settlement. It did not lead to a known water source. It simply ran away from the city and ended at a circle of stone pillars. During the day, the road looked almost useless. But at night, under moonlight, the pale stones would have reflected like a thin line across the ground. Some researchers called it ceremonial. Some called it symbolic. One young member of the survey team called it a runway, and everyone laughed because that word sounded ridiculous. But after that, the joke stayed in people's minds. Because under parts of the White Road, they found patches of glassy sand. Not everywhere. Not enough to prove some impossible machine had landed, but enough to make people ask what kind of heat had touched the ground. Lightning can fuse sand. Meteor events can create unusual heat damage. Human fires can alter surfaces too. Nature has many ways to create things that look strange. Still, the glassy patches sat exactly where the road pointed. And beside them were footprints. Human footprints. Dozens of them. All facing the same direction. None clearly returning. That was the moment the story became more than a ruined city. It became a question. What were they walking toward? The tablets may give the closest thing to an answer. They described, in symbols and short markings, a final season of fear. First came poor rain, then came a strange light. The phrase used by later translators was the second moon. It appeared for several nights above the eastern horizon. It did not move like the real moon. It did not rise and fall in the same rhythm. It seemed to hold its position, pulse, fade, and return. The cautious explanation is simple. Maybe it was a comet. Maybe it was a bright planet. Maybe it was an unusual atmospheric effect. Maybe the tablets were not describing astronomy at all, but a religious vision during a time of crisis. That would fit human history perfectly. When food runs low, people look for meaning. When leaders lose control, priests promise answers. When the sky does something unusual, a frightened population can turn it into destiny. But the city did more than watch. It prepared. Hundreds of black stone mirrors were placed on rooftops. They were angled toward the same region of the sky. Clay lamps were arranged around doorways. Water jars were filled and sealed. The central plaza was cleaned. The White Road was repaired. And the stone pillars at the end of the road were freshly marked with the symbol of the open sky. This was not panic. It was organization. That is what makes the mystery powerful. If people were running from famine, why prepare the plaza? If they were escaping war, why leave their valuables? If they were abandoning the city slowly, why were so many objects left in place? If the sky sign was just a symbol, why did the entire city seem to respond to it? The alien theory begins there, not with proof, with behavior. The theory says the people saw something they believed was not natural. Maybe it appeared many nights in a row. Maybe it gave off a strange light. Maybe it seemed to answer their signals. Maybe the black mirrors were not just ritual objects, but a way to reflect light upward. Maybe the road of pale stones was not made for walking, but for guiding something down. And maybe on the final night, the thing above the city came closer. The tablets describe the 8th night with one phrase. The sky opened. Not the clouds opened. Not the storm opened. The sky opened. Below the symbol, the artists carved human figures rising from the ground. Their arms are stretched outward. Their legs are not touching the earth. Some people say this is just religious art, showing souls going to the heavens. That is possible. It may even be likely. But then there is one more detail. The figures rising in the final tablets are not alone. Above them is another shape, a tall, thin figure with a long head and narrow arms. It appears only in the final carvings. It does not appear in earlier layers of the city. It is not drawn like the local gods. It is not drawn like normal humans. It is always placed near the sky door. That does not automatically mean alien. Ancient art can look strange because masks, spirits, and gods were often drawn in symbolic forms. But if you are building an alien mystery story, this is the exact kind of detail that refuses to stay quiet. Because the figure appears when the city begins to prepare. It appears when the second moon appears. It appears when the road is repaired. It appears when the mirrors are placed on rooftops. And after that, the city is empty. Later people avoided the ruins. That may be the strongest part of the legend. Useful places are usually reused. Stone is valuable. Shelter is valuable. Water access is valuable. Even abandoned cities often become sources of building material. But this place stayed mostly untouched for generations. Local stories warned people not to sleep inside the walls. They said the road of white stones sometimes glowed under a clear sky. They said voices could be